It started on a Tuesday, which somehow makes it worse because Tuesdays are supposed to be harmless. Unremarkable days. I was on my usual morning run, the one I take just to clear my head before the kids wake up and my husband mumbles something half-hearted while scrolling through emails. Wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't even feeling particularly sexy or lonely. I was just running through the park, earbuds in, music low. When I tripped over a damn root and landed hard on the pavement, a man jogging behind me stopped immediately, pulling his headphones out and kneeling next to me with concern in his eyes. Not the typical, "Are you okay?" look, but something warmer, more present, as if he actually cared. He had this kind of scruffy handsomeness, like he didn't try too hard but still looked ridiculously good even in sweat-stained. Gray shorts and a worn black tank top. He asked if I was all right, helped me up, and when I winced a little, he offered to walk me home. I should have said no. I always say no. I've had random men offer help before, and I always politely decline because I'm married, because I'm loyal, because I have nothing to prove to anyone. But something in the way he looked at me, not like a tired mom of two with fading abs and stretch marks, but like a woman, made me hesitate. We walked slowly, mostly in silence, until he asked my name. I told him, Sophie, and he smiled like he was going to remember it forever. He said his name was Tyler, and something about the way he said it, confident but soft, made my stomach flip. I caught myself laughing at one of his dumb jokes and realized I was blushing like a teenager, which was ridiculous because I'm 36 and married to a man who hasn't made me blush in years. Tyler didn't try anything, didn't push, didn't even ask for my number, but he started showing up in the park every morning after that, always running just behind me or next to me if I slowed down, like a silent little routine we'd never agreed on. One day, I mentioned that my husband never runs with me. He said, his loss, and looked me straight in the eye, and I felt heat all the way down to places I hadn't felt alive in months. I started dressing a little differently for my runs. Not obvious, nothing slutty, but tighter leggings. A sports bra that gave me just a little more lift. Hair down instead of up. Lip balm with a hint of gloss. I told myself it was just to feel good, but I knew exactly what I was doing. The day it happened, it was raining. I should have stayed home, but I went out anyway because I knew he'd be there, and he was soaked through, water dripping from his hair, shirt clinging to his chest like something out of a dream. He smiled like we shared a secret and said, "Let's run under the trees." We did, and when we stopped under that old oak near the pond, he looked at me, breathing heavy, rain slicking his jawline, and said, "I've wanted to kiss you since the day you fell." And then he did. God, he kissed me like I was the only woman left in the world. My hands went to his neck, then his back, and I pressed my body into him, feeling how hard he was, even through his wet shorts. I should have stopped it right then, but I didn't. I pressed closer, tongue brushing his, and when he groaned softly into my mouth, something in me snapped. I hadn't been touched like that in years, not hungrily. Not like someone was starving for me. We ended up in the backseat of his Jeep, parked beneath the trees, windows fogged up. Close, wet, and clinging as we fumbled out of them. My leggings were peeled off slowly, like he was unwrapping a gift he'd been dreaming about for weeks. His hands were everywhere, firm, warm, insistent, and when he finally pushed inside me, I gasped so loudly it echoed in the small space. It wasn't gentle, not at first. It was needy, desperate, like he'd be. Backseat of his Jeep, parked beneath the trees, windows fogged up. Close, wet, and clinging as we fumbled out of them. My leggings were peeled off slowly, like he was unwrapping a gift he'd been dreaming about for weeks. His hands were everywhere, firm, warm, insistent, and when he finally pushed inside me, I gasped so loudly it echoed in the small space. It wasn't gentle, not at first. It was needy, desperate, like he'd be. We lay there for a while afterward, tangled together, our skin still damp from both the rain and what we'd just done. He brushed a strand of hair from my face and looked at me like I was a masterpiece. Not a mistake, not a guilty secret. And for a moment, I didn't feel ashamed at all. I felt seen. I felt alive. It wasn't supposed to go beyond that one time. I told myself it was just an accident, a slip, something I'd tuck away into a dusty corner of my memory and never revisit. But the next morning, he was there again, same time, same smile, same eyes that undressed me without a word. And I didn't run away. I ran with him. We didn't even try to pretend we weren't heading toward each other anymore. He started coming by my yoga studio, where I worked part-time, waiting across the street in a coffee shop, just so he could walk me too. My car afterward, we found these little cracks in my life. Wednesday mornings when my husband had early meetings, Saturday afternoons when the kids were at their grandma's, and we filled them with touches. Stolen kisses, long hungry sessions in hotel rooms that smelled like citrus cleaner and lust. I learned things about my body I had forgotten. I learned what it was like to laugh mid-orgasm, to feel teeth, grazing skin in the most delicious way, to hear someone whisper my name like it was a promise. I never knew how much I'd miss being wanted, not just routine sex. Not just marital obligation, but raw, unapologetic desire. Tyler had this way of looking at me, like my body was art, and every curve, every freckle, every sound I made was something he wanted to memorize. It wasn't just sex, though. That's what made it dangerous. He asked questions no one had asked in years, not, "Did you pick up milk?" but "What scares you lately?" Or, "What did you dream of before you had to be everything for everyone?" I started answering him. I told him things I hadn't even told myself, and slowly, parts of me I thought were long dead started waking up again. It wasn't just sex, though. That's what made it dangerous. He asked questions no one had asked in years, not, "Did you pick up milk?" but "What scares you lately?" Or, "What did you dream of before you had to be everything for everyone?" I started answering him. I told him things I hadn't even told myself, and slowly, parts of me I thought were long dead started waking up again. Of course, I tried to pull away once. My guilt came in waves when my daughter hugged me goodnight, when my husband kissed my cheek absently, still half in his work emails. I told Tyler it had to stop. I said, "This is wrong," while sitting in his car with his hand on my thigh and my heart in my throat. He didn't fight me. He just nodded and said, "Okay." But then he leaned in and kissed the inside of my wrist, slowly, like he was sealing it with something that words couldn't touch. And I came back the next week anyway. It became a world of two parallel lives. I'd have dinner with my family, clear the dishes, help with homework, and then an hour later, I'd be pinned against the wall in a room with dim lighting and his hands on my hips, making me forget everything but how good it felt to be worshipped. I knew it couldn't last. I knew we were building something fragile on a foundation of lies, but when he touched me, it felt real, more real than the distant smiles and quiet dinners and the way my husband hadn't looked me in the eyes during sex since before our second child was born. One afternoon, we met at a hotel on the edge of town, one of those discreet, low-key places with dark hallways and no questions asked at the front desk. I remember the way Tyler looked at me when I opened the door, like he couldn't believe I was real. His hands were on me before I even closed it behind us, lifting my dress, lips on my collarbone, unzipping me like he'd been counting down the minutes. I didn't hesitate anymore. I didn't think. I just felt. His mouth trailed down my neck, between my breasts, then lower, and I arched against him with a desperation I never knew. I had him my nails scratched on his back as he teased me with his tongue until I was trembling, gasping his name over and over like a confession. When he slid into me, it was slow, intentional, like he needed me to know how much he missed this, how much he missed me. He kissed me the entire time, long and deep, Like he was trying to fuse our breaths together, Dot. It wasn't just fucking that day, Dot. It was something more tender. Something that made my eyes sting because I couldn't remember the last time someone touched me like I mattered beyond my responsibilities, Dot. We stayed in that bed for hours, Dot, talking, Dot, touching, Dot, laughing, like we had no clocks. No consequences. After I lay with my head on his chest and he played with my hair, and out of nowhere, he whispered, "What would you do if I asked you to leave him?" My breath caught, not because I hadn't thought about it, God. I had, but because hearing it aloud made it real. I didn't answer. Not then. I just closed my eyes and listened to his heartbeat beneath my cheek. Back home that night, everything felt louder. My husband's voice. The clatter of silverware, the buzz of the TV. I watched him from across the room. This man I once dreamed of marrying, who knew my coffee order and how I cried at dog commercials, but who hadn't truly seen me in years. He asked how my day was, and I smiled and said, "Fine," while a man who wasn't him still lingered on my skin. The next time with Tyler, I told him everything. I told him how I'd stopped sleeping with my husband months ago, how I faked smiles and family photos, how lonely it felt to be in a house full of people and still feel invisible. He didn't judge me. He just kissed the corners of my mouth, like he was trying to glue all the broken pieces back together. I knew I was walking a wire, balancing a secret life on top of the one I was supposed to be living. I became a master of small lies, harmless ones. Things like yoga ran late or I'm just going to the store real quick. And each time I saw Tyler, the lies felt more worth it. I wore lace under my jeans. I shaved on weekdays. I laughed more, looked in the mirror more, felt wanted again. It was addictive, not just the sex, which was still wild. Still left me shaking, but the way he looked at me afterward. Like I wasn't just someone's wife or someone's mother, but my own self, my own woman. One morning, we didn't even make it to the hotel. We were supposed to meet for coffee, just to talk his idea, not mine. He said he wanted to hear about the rest of my life, the parts I didn't tell him yet. But as soon as I saw him standing there in that black t-shirt that clung to him just right, his hands in his pockets, eyes lit up just from seeing me, I knew talking wouldn't be enough. He didn't even say hello. He just walked up, took my face in his hands and kissed me like the world had stopped around us. People were walking by, cars driving past, but I didn't care. Not even a little. We ended up in the back of my SUV, windows cracked, seats folded down. It was fast, frantic. The kind of sex that's more about needing someone than loving them. His mouth was at my neck, my hands tangled in his hair, and I came before he was even fully inside me, just from the way he moved against me like he already knew every secret I hadn't spoken out loud. I moaned louder than I meant to, legs shaking, and he whispered, "You have no idea what you do to me." As he pushed into me slow and deep, my body still trembling from the first wave. Afterward, I pulled my leggings back on and looked at myself in the mirror of the visor. I didn't look guilty. I looked flushed, glowing. Even my lipstick was smeared, my hair a mess, but my eyes, they looked awake. I didn't even recognize the woman I saw sometimes after I'd been with Tyler, not in a bad way, but like meeting someone I used to know long ago, before marriage, before diapers, before routine dulled everything sharp and wild in me. He asked me that day, again, what I wanted. He said he wasn't pressuring me, but needed to know if we were just borrowed time or something more. I told him I didn't know. I told him I couldn't imagine hurting my kids, breaking their home, undoing all the things I'd built over the years. But I also told him I didn't want to stop seeing him, that I couldn't, and I meant it, every word. At home that night, I let my husband undress me for the first time in months. His hands were clumsy, unsure, like he didn't know the shape of me anymore. I closed my eyes and tried not to think of Tyler, but my body betrayed me. It responded. It wanted, and I hated how much it felt like lying. Even though technically that was the one moment where I wasn't. After that, I couldn't do it anymore, the pretending. The splitting of myself into wife, mother, lover. I started slipping. I forget to cover a hickey. Miss a call from my husband because I was in Tyler's bed. Answer too quickly when Tyler texted and the sound was still on. I told myself I had it under control, but the truth was, I didn't want to stop. It happened on a Sunday. The kind of slow, lazy Sunday where everyone's in pajamas too long and the smell of pancakes clings to the kitchen walls. My husband was in the living room helping our youngest build a Lego spaceship. I was in the bathroom, towel around my hair, checking a text I shouldn't have even glanced at. It was from Tyler, just one line. Still taste you on my lips. My stomach flipped, thighs tightening without permission. I should have deleted it. Instead, I smiled. Stupid. Stupid smile. Because I didn't hear him walk up behind me. What are you smiling at? His voice startled me. I jumped, locked the screen too fast, too guilty. He looked at me like he already knew something had shifted in his eyes. He didn't ask again. He just said, "You've been somewhere else lately?" And walked away. That was it. No accusations, no shouting. Just that quiet, wounded distance that scared me more than anger ever could. I met Tyler that evening, even though I told myself I wouldn't. I needed to feel him, needed to shut out the rising panic. I walked into his place, and he took one look at me and said, "What happened?" And I broke. I told him about the moment in the bathroom, how the walls were starting to close in, how I didn't know how. Much longer I could pretend. He didn't try to fix it. He just pulled me into him, kissed my forehead, and held me there like I was something worth anchoring down. We didn't even have sex that night. He just took my shirt off slowly, kissed every inch of skin like he was memorizing it for when he couldn't have it anymore. We laid there, skin against skin, hearts beating too loud. His fingers traced the line of my spine while I stared at the ceiling and tried to imagine a life where we didn't have to hide. And that's when he said it, "I love you." 3 words I hadn't heard in years, at least not like that, not with weight, not with eyes searching mine like they needed permission to say it again. I didn't say it back, not yet, but I kissed him like I meant it. And he knew. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions at home, kissed the kids goodnight, made lunches, answered questions about work like I was still inside my life, but I wasn't. I was halfway somewhere else. Always halfway with Tyler, halfway in the life I was supposed to want, and the one that made my blood hum. One night, after the kids were in bed, my husband asked me to sit down. He didn't touch me, just looked at me across the table, hands clasped like he needed them to stay steady. He said he didn't know what was going on, but he knew something had changed, that I wasn't here anymore, not really. But I looked through him, not at him. I wanted to cry. I wanted to say, "I'm sorry, I tried." But instead, I said, "I don't know how to fix it," and his face fell like a quiet storm. I didn't sleep that night. I texted Tyler at 2 a.m. I'm scared. He called me instantly. Just hearing his voice was like stepping into warmth. "Then don't do it alone," he said. "Whatever you decide, I'll be here." A week passed after that sleepless night, and everything inside me felt like it was shifting, melting, tightening, breaking. I was tired of hiding. Tired of being split down the middle. Living 2 truths that couldn't exist in the same room. My husband was quieter than usual, and in the silence between us, I realized something awful. He knew. He'd known for a while. Not the details, not the name, but the absence. He felt me. Drifting months ago, he just didn't know how to reach for me anymore. I met Tyler one last time. I knew at the moment I walked in. His smile faltered when he saw my face. Like he could already feel the goodbye hanging between us. I didn't waste time. I sat beside him, took his hand, and said the words like I was peeling skin off bone. I can't leave them. And it hurt more than I expected to say it, because some part of me had imagined a life with him, mornings in his kitchen, laughter in bed. No. Secrets, no hiding. He didn't fight me, Dot. He just looked at me for a long time, jaw tight, then leaned in and kissed my cheeks off slow, like a period at the end of something sacred. You were the first thing that made me feel alive in years, he whispered, and you'll always be the woman I wanted more time with. I cried into his chest for a while, then left without turning back. At home, I told my husband everything. I didn't leave anything out. He sat still, hands in his lap, listening like he had to fight the urge to stand up and walk away every second I spoke. And when I finished, I said, "You deserve the truth, even if it wrecks everything." He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just looked at me and asked, "Are you in love with him?" I told him I didn't know, and it was the most honest thing I'd said all year. We didn't divorce not yet anyway, but we started therapy, Dot. We started talking, and sometimes it was ugly, Dot. Sometimes it was silent for days, but it was real, Dot, and maybe we'll make it. Maybe we won't. I still think of Tyler. Some nights, I wonder what he's doing, if he thinks of me when he hears my name in a song or passes someone who wears my perfume.